The Council's miscalculation. The chamber of the Galactic Council was alive with heated discussion. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in their elevated seats, their varied features illuminated by the dim blue glow of the central holo display. At the center of the room, a massive projection flickered, live footage of Xelari warships descending upon the human colony of Darius 7. The council chamber, usually a place of careful diplomacy, was now filled with quiet amusement. Ambassador Kadar of the Xelari Consortium, a race of long-lived strategists, leaned forward, his bioluminescent tendrils pulsing in satisfaction. "It has begun," he murmured, his voice carrying a note of smug certainty. As expected, the humans did not even attempt to defend their colony. They are a species of diplomats and traders, not warriors. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Xelari Dominion, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, had launched an unprovoked invasion of Darius 7 that morning. Their reasoning was simple. Humans were expanding too quickly, their influence growing beyond what the Council had deemed appropriate. The Xelari, warriors by nature, had decided to test humanity's resolve. The prevailing belief among the Council was that humanity, despite its rapid advancements, had no true experience in war. Their history was filled with internal conflicts, but as a spacefaring race, they had avoided large-scale galactic wars. Unlike the Drekthal, who evolved on a death world and fought in endless tribal conflicts, or the Varkal, who survived centuries of warfare before unifying, humans had gained a reputation for diplomacy and trade. "They'll negotiate," one counselor scoffed. "They always do." The only one who remained silent was Ambassador Elias Carter, humanity's sole representative in the council. His face, unreadable beneath the formal robes he had been forced to wear, was set in grim determination. When Kadar turned his gaze on him, it was with a knowing smirk. "Well, Ambassador Carter, what will your people do?" Kadar's tone was laced with condescension. "I assume you'll be requesting mediation. Perhaps a peace summit." Carter exhaled slowly, his fingers tightening on the polished surface of his desk. His voice, when he finally spoke, was devoid of emotion. "You're all making a mistake," he said. The chamber fell silent. Carter stood, straightening his posture. Though physically unimpressive compared to the towering reptilian forms of the Drekthal or the multi-limbed might of the Varkal, his presence filled the room. "We do not fear war," he said evenly, his gaze sweeping across the chamber. "We avoid it. There is a difference." Kadar's smirk widened. "Ah, of course. Humans are pacifists. You fear conflict." A cold, humorless chuckle escaped Carter's lips. "No, we do not fear war. You should." The counselors exchanged confused glances, but Carter did not elaborate. Instead, he turned toward the holo display, where the Xelari forces were seen establishing planetary control. The initial invasion had gone unchallenged, just as the Council had expected. No human fleet had arrived, no distress signals had been sent. It was as if humanity had already given up. Kadar leaned back his seat, folding his hands in satisfaction. "A wise choice," he mused. "Your species understands its place." Carter's expression did not change. "No," he said softly. "You just don't understand us at all." Darius 7, Xelari Command Post. High Warlord Vyrek, Supreme Commander of the Xelari Invasion Force, stood atop the captured human administrative center, gazing out over the city. His warriors had crushed any minor resistance within hours. Darius 7 was his. He turned toward his second-in-command, a hulking brute named Zarok, and grinned. "I expected more of a fight." Zarok rumbled in amusement. "Humans are prey. They speak loudly, but when the moment comes, they roll over." Vyrek's mandibles clicked in agreement. The planet's defenses had been minimal. No fleet had arrived to challenge them. Humanity had proven itself weak. Then, his communicator beeped. A transmission was coming through. Unencrypted. Strange. Vyrek gestured for the transmission to be played over the main command center speakers. A human voice, calm, steady, filled the room. "This is General Elias Carter of the Terran Defense Command. You have made a grave mistake." The Xelari commander stiffened. Carter continued, his voice now colder, sharper. "We do not engage in war lightly. But when we do not fight for victory." Silence. The Xelari officers glanced at one another, confused. "We fight to win." Then the transmission cut out. At that moment, the sky above Darius 7 changed. Xelari ships in orbit began to disappear. Not explode, vanish. The Xelari command center's sensors flickered, data streams collapsing into static. The city's sky was filled with shimmering distortions, as if reality itself was being rewritten. Virek's blood ran cold. "Sir, our fleet is," an officer stammered. A single, small human vessel had entered orbit. A ship too small to be a warship. It broadcast only 2 words. "No survivors." Then the sky erupted in fire. The reckoning begins. Xelari Command Post, Darius 7. Panic gripped High Warlord Virek as he stared at the command center's monitors, his mandibles clicking in nervous agitation. His warriors, just moments ago, celebrating their effortless conquest, were now barking desperate reports across the control room. Their fleet was gone. Not damaged, not retreating, gone. All communications with orbit had been severed. Every warship in high atmosphere, every patrol vessel in low orbit, every transport ship holding their reinforcements simply vanished. Virek slammed his clawed fist against the console, snarling. This is a trick, some form of human deception. But the fear in his officers' eyes told him otherwise. The Xelari Dominion was one of the most powerful militaries in the galaxy, their fleets battle-tested against countless enemies. This was no trick. Something far worse had just begun. Then, for the first time since their invasion, the humans responded. The holo displays flickered. A new signal broke through their encrypted network, overriding every screen in the command center. The image was crystal clear. General Elias Carter stood in a dimly lit war room, his eyes cold and unyielding. "You have been weighed," Carter said. "You have been measured, and now you will be erased." Virek's mandibles twitched. "You have no forces here. Carter cut him off. "Who said we needed to be there?" And then the city began to burn. The counterstrike. It started with a sound, an eerie, unnatural hum that filled the air. A deep, resonating vibration that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Then the skies split open. A ripple, like a tear in space itself, formed above Darius 7, followed by hundreds of descending objects. Not ships, not missiles, pods. At first, the Xelari soldiers thought the humans had deployed drop pods for ground troops. But these were too small, too fast. They plummeted toward the city like meteors, smashing into the streets, buildings, and even the command center itself. Then they opened. What emerged were not soldiers, but machines. Sleek black combat drones, each barely the size of a humanoid, crawled out of the pods like insects from a hive. Their bodies were sharp-edged, covered in reflective plating that distorted their forms like living shadows. No visible weapons, until their limbs split apart, revealing integrated energy cannons and monomolecular blades. They did not march. They hunted. The first Xelari to react was a captain stationed near the main entrance of the command center. He barked an order to his troops, only to watch, horrified, as a drone moved faster than his eyes could follow and ripped his throat out with a single sweep of its blade. Screams followed. The drones did not fire wildly. They did not waste shots. Every movement was calculated, precise, surgical. A group of Xelari warriors tried to regroup in the courtyard. One drone landed among them, twisting its body unnaturally as it snapped the spine of one soldier while simultaneously firing a plasma round through another skull. Another warrior, a high-ranking field commander, tried to issue a retreat command. A drone leaped onto his back, forced his head up, and fired a shot directly into his mandibles. The command never came. Within minutes, the entire front of the city was drowning in Xelari blood, and the humans had yet to arrive in person. A new kind of war. Back in the Xelari command post, Virek was shaking. This was not war. War was clashes of armies. War was battles fought over days, weeks, years. But this was something else entirely. "Call for reinforcements," he ordered. "Sir," one of his officers stammered, looking at him with wide, terrified eyes. "There are no reinforcements left." It was true. The Xelari High Fleet, their grand force of 2,000 warships, was silent. There were no distress signals, no last stands, nothing. And then Carter's voice echoed through their own comms. "You misunderstand the nature of our warfare." The screens in the command center changed again. They showed footage, recorded from the Xelari fleet before its destruction. The counselors had assumed humanity was inexperienced in war, that they had never fought on a galactic scale. They were wrong. Humanity had simply spent the last 2 centuries perfecting how to end wars before they could begin. The footage showed human warships, but not the lumbering, armored behemoths the Council expected. These ships were sleek, invisible to standard sensors. They phased in and out of real space, striking before defenses could be raised. Xelari battlecruisers simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the atomic level by exotic weaponry the Dominion had no counter for. It had taken less than an hour to eliminate the entire invasion fleet. Vyrek staggered back from the screens. His warriors were being butchered in the streets. His fleet was gone. His reinforcements would never arrive. He had not conquered Darius 7. Darius 7 had been his grave from the start. Carter's face appeared one last time. "You will surrender," he said. "It was not a request, or you will cease to exist." Vyrek looked around the room. Every officer's face bore the same realization. The Xelari Dominion had just made an enemy they could never defeat. The horror of humanity. Xelari Bunker, Darius 7. High Warlord Vyrek sat in stunned silence. Around him, his officers trembled, their once proud forms hunched in terror. The air in the bunker was thick with the scent of fear, a scent Xelari warriors were never meant to produce. It had taken less than 2 hours for the humans to undo what the Dominion had built over centuries. The Grand Fleet? Destroyed. The invasion force? Annihilated. His city-wide occupation? Reduced to smoking rubble. And the worst part? The humans had not even arrived in person yet. It was their machines, inhuman constructs of death that slaughtered with terrifying efficiency. He had seen enemies fight before, but the humans, they waged war like engineers solving a problem. Cold, precise, methodical. Vyrek had always thought war was brutal, chaotic, a grand clash of warriors fighting for honor and dominance. But this was a calculated extermination, and it was only just beginning. Nowhere to run. A deafening boom rocked the bunker. The walls shuddered, and cracks spiderwebbed across the reinforced alloy plating. The lights flickered, and a wave of dust rained down from the ceiling. "The outer defenses are failing," an officer shouted. His voice was shrill with panic. "The drones are inside the facility." Vyrek could hardly process it. The bunker was 4 kilometers underground, shielded with triple-layered pulse barriers and 50 meters of reinforced durasteel. It was impenetrable. At least it was supposed to be. Then, from the bunker's security monitors, Vyrek saw the impossible. The drones were not breaching from above. They were already here. The cameras showed Xelari guards twitching violently before collapsing, their neural implants hacked in an instant. Others turned on each other, their weapons discharging wildly before they fell silent. The humans had never intended a traditional siege. Instead, they had infected the bunker systems. The drones had piggybacked on Dominion infrastructure, rewriting code, overriding controls, and turning the Xelari's own technology against them. Vyrek gripped the table so hard his claws cracked the metal. They fight war like a virus. No grand speeches, no formal engagements, just infection. And then, the doors to the war room slid open, face to face with the apex species. Vyrek's body locked up, his fight-or-flight instincts battling each other for dominance. Every officer in the room reached for their weapons, but it was too late. Through the doors stepped actual human soldiers. Not drones, not war machines. Humans. They were smaller than the Xelari, shorter and seemingly less physically imposing. And yet, there was something about them. Their armor was sleek and matte black, reflecting none of the bunker's dim lighting. Their weapons were unlike anything Vyrek had ever seen, compact, streamlined, yet humming with a quiet, restrained lethality. But it was their eyes that shook him to his core. Human eyes were different. They lacked the vertical pupils of a predator. They had no glow, no shimmering depths like the Xelari's multifaceted vision. And yet, Vyrek had never felt more like prey. The lead human soldier stepped forward, his expression unreadable behind his helmet's visor. His movements were slow, deliberate, not out of caution, but control, as if he already knew that no one in this room could stop him. He tilted his head, studying Vyrek the way a scientist might observe a specimen. Then, in perfect Xelari dialect, he said, "This is the part where you surrender. The choice." Vyrek felt his pride and survival instincts at war within him. He wanted to lash out. He wanted to scream. He wanted to fight back. But what would that achieve? The humans had already won. In less than 5 hours, they had taken his army, his ships, his planet, and now, his war room. Vyrek's claws trembled at his sides. He thought of the Xelari High Council, the ruling body that had declared humanity weak and unprepared for war. He thought of the entire Dominion, watching from afar, still believing this was a mere conquest. They had no idea. The Xelari had never fought a species like this before. Not warriors, hunters. Vyrek forced his mandibles shut and lifted his hands in surrender. The human soldier gave a small nod, tapping his communicator. "The warlord is secure. Darius, 7 is ours." And just like that, the Xelari Dominion had lost its first war. Aftermath. Back on Earth, General Elias Carter stood in the command center, watching through the helmet feed of the soldier now restraining Vyrek. The war was over before it had even truly begun. A junior officer turned to him. "Sir, what should we do with the prisoners?" Carter exhaled slowly. The Xelari had been so certain that humans were afraid of war. The truth was, humanity had simply become too good at it. He gave his order. "Send the Dominion a message. Let them know we're coming." The message delivered. Xelari High Council Chamber, the core world of Xelvar. The Grand Council Chamber of the Xelari Dominion was a place of dignity and power. The towering crystalline walls shimmered with the weight of centuries of conquest, reflecting the faces of the Dominion's most feared warlords and strategists. But today, there was no pride in their expressions, only fear. High Chancellor Vorek, the oldest and most revered leader of the Dominion, sat rigid in his throne. His claws clicked anxiously against the armrests as he watched the holographic transmission in front of him. The image displayed Darius, 7, or rather, what was left of it. Smoke billowed from once proud fortresses, entire fleets reduced to drifting debris, and millions of Xelari soldiers either captured or dead. Vorek could not believe what he was seeing. 5 hours. The humans had needed only 5 hours to dismantle an entire invasion force, capture a Xelari warlord, and take a critical Dominion stronghold. And now, the humans had sent a message. A live transmission. The face of humanity. The holographic feed shifted, and the face of General Elias Carter filled the chamber. He was an older human, his face worn but sharp, his uniform crisp, decorated with metals that the Xelari could not decipher. His eyes were what disturbed them most. Cold, calculating, and absolutely certain. There was no gloating, no anger, no emotion at all. He simply stared at them. Then he spoke. "Your war is over." The words echoed through the chamber, sending a shudder down Vorek's spine. "You came to our borders believing we were weak, believing we feared war, believing we would fight like you." Carter leaned forward, the shadows under his eyes deepening. "That was your first mistake." A ripple of unease swept through the council members. Some shifted in their seats, their mandibles twitching in distress. "Your second mistake," Carter continued, "was thinking we would fight honorably." Vorek clenched his claws. That was true. The Xelari had believed war was a contest of strength, a test of honor. But the humans had not fought a war. They had waged an extermination campaign. No negotiations, no hesitation, no mercy. "Your final mistake," Carter said, his voice dropping to an almost lethal whisper, "was thinking we would stop." The chamber froze. A choice of survival. The High Chancellor leaned forward, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "What are your demands, human?" Carter held his gaze. "Unconditional surrender." The words felt like a death sentence. "You will release all human prisoners. You will retreat from every system outside your home sector. You will dismantle your war fleets. And you will never raise arms against humanity again." Silence. The terms were absolute. Vorek's mind reeled. These conditions were worse than defeat. They were subjugation. The Dominion had spent centuries carving out an empire of blood and conquest, only to lose it in a single day to a species they had barely considered a threat. Could they even refuse? Vorek turned to his warlords, searching for some sign of defiance, some glimmer of the old Xelari pride. But he found none. Their faces mirrored his own terror, because deep down, they all knew the truth. The humans weren't making a request. They were offering a mercy, a final chance to survive. And if the Dominion refused, humanity would simply finish the job. A final warning. Carter exhaled, sensing their hesitation. "Make no mistake," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "If you ever return to our space, if you ever challenge us again, we will not stop at your fleets." The Xelari lords stiffened. "We will come for your homeworlds." The air in the chamber felt thin. "And when we are done, there will be no Dominion." The threat was not exaggerated. It was a statement of fact. Carter leaned back, his expression unreadable. "You have one cycle to decide." The transmission cut out, leaving the most powerful warlords in the galaxy paralyzed in silence. The decision. The chamber felt colder than before. The weight of the decision crushed down on them all. For the first time in centuries, the Xelari Dominion, the undefeated conquerors of the galactic core, faced an enemy that they could not defeat. Vorek's claws trembled as he looked down at the surrender documents now projected before him. His mind screamed at him to fight, to refuse, to retaliate. But his instincts told him the truth. This was not a war the Xelari could win. And if they chose wrong, there would be no Xelari left to remember their mistake. Slowly, reluctantly, the High Chancellor reached forward. With a single motion, he pressed his seal onto the document. The Dominion had surrendered. The aftermath. Back on Earth, General Carter received the official surrender from the Xelari Dominion. A junior officer turned to him. "Sir, the war is over." Carter stared at the message for a long moment before exhaling. "No." He turned to the strategic display, where other galactic powers were watching, studying, learning. Humanity had just revealed its greatest weapon. Not its technology, not its fleets, but its ability to end wars before they even truly began. Carter narrowed his eyes. The real war hasn't even started yet.